The contract had been posted for 3 days, and nobody had touched it. Drell Sauvon found this strange. In his 4 years with the Crimson Ledger, he had never seen a contract sit untouched for more than a few hours. Assassins in this guild competed for work. They fought over targets. They bribed handlers for early information. Yet here was a posting worth more credits than most operatives earned in a lifetime, and the board around it remained emptied. He stood before the glowing display, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. The Makari assassin had completed 200 kills across 6 star systems. He had never failed a contract. He had never even been injured on a job. At 28 cycles old, he was considered one of the rising talents in the guild. The contract details were simple. Target: Ambassador David Webb. Species: human. Location: neutral station ardent. Crime classified. Payment: 40 million credits, 0.40 million. Drell could buy his own ship, his own station. He could retire to any world he wanted and live like nobility for the rest of his days. Why was everyone avoiding it? He watched as Moro, a senior assassin from the Sethki species, walked past the board. The reptilian killer had over 500 confirmed kills. His scales were marked with scars from countless battles. He glanced at the human contract, and his tail twitched. Then he walked away without a second look. Drell caught up to him in the corridor. Moro, that contract. Why is nobody taking it? The old reptile stopped. He turned slowly, and Drell saw something in his yellow eyes that he had never seen before. It looked almost like fear. You are young, Moro said, so I will give you advice instead of mockery. Do not touch that contract. It is 40 million credits. It is death. Moro leaned closer. Read history, young one. Then you will understand. He walked away before Drell could ask more questions. Over the next 2 days, Drell asked other guild members about the contract. The responses were always the same. Senior assassins would shake their heads and change the subject. Veterans would laugh bitterly and refuse to explain. One operative, a female Karoth with blade arms that had killed dozens, simply said, "Humans are not targets. Humans are traps." Drell did not understand. He had never encountered a human before. They were relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only a century ago. They were soft-skinned, slow, weak compared to most species. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. By all biological measures, they should be easy prey. Yet the guild's most dangerous killers treated them like monsters that on the 4th day, Drell made his decision. He would not take the contract yet. First, he would understand why everyone was afraid. He would go to the archives and read the history that Moro had mentioned. The archives were located in the deepest section of Hollow's End Station. This was where the Crimson Ledger kept records of every contract for the past 800 years. Successes, failures, and everything in between. If there was something special about humans, the answer would be here. Drell entered the archive chamber and approached the ancient data terminal. He typed in his query, "Human targets." All records. The screen flickered. Then a number appeared. Files found. 4847. Drell stared. That was an enormous number. The guild typically kept only a few hundred files on any given species. Most of those would be successful contracts with brief summaries. He opened the first file and began reading. 2 hours later, he was still reading. His hands were shaking. The files were not records of success. They were records of failure. Hundreds and hundreds of failures. Assassins who had vanished without trace. Assassins who had been found dead in impossible ways. Assassins who had completed their kills only to be hunted down and destroyed by other humans seeking revenge. 1 file described a poison specialist who targeted a 62-year-old human female. The woman had detected the poison by its smell, switched the drinks, and killed the assassin while continuing to grade student assignments. Another file documented 4 separate assassins sent after a single cargo pilot over 2 years. 3 died. The 4th surrendered himself to human authorities and begged for imprisonment rather than continue the hunt. That a 3rd file made Drell's blood run cold. A team had breached a human cargo vessel, expecting easy kills. The humans had sealed themselves in one section, vented the atmosphere everywhere else, and then hunted the assassins through their own oxygen-deprived ship using emergency tools as weapons. Point 7 assassins died. 0 humans. Drell pushed back from the terminal. He needed air. He needed to think. But as he stood, he noticed something at the bottom of his search results. A file marked with red symbols. Restricted access. The title read, "The Incident at Gallows Station." A warning message appeared below it. Guildmaster clearance required. Content classified by order of Orin Fell. Drell knew Guildmaster Orin. The ancient insectoid had run the Crimson Ledger for over a century. He was not the type to classify information without good reason. Whatever happened at Gallows Station, it was bad enough to hide, and Drell needed to know what it was. He left the archives and walked toward the Guildmaster's chamber. The 40 million credits still called to him. But now a new feeling had joined his greed. That IT was the first small seed of fear. Guildmaster Orin Fell had lived for 312 years, and in all that time, he had learned one absolute truth. Some prey was not worth hunting. Drell stood before the ancient insectoid in his chamber. Orin's compound eyes studied the young Makari with an expression that might have been amusement or pity. It was hard to tell with his species. "You wish to access the Gallows file," Orin said. His voice was dry like dead leaves. "May I ask why?" "I am considering the human contract," Drell replied. "I want to understand the risks." Orin made a clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "The risks? Yes. Very wise to consider the risks before accepting certain death. With respect, Guildmaster, one human diplomat cannot be that dangerous." One human? Orin rose from his seat. He was taller than Drell, his exoskeleton covered in old scars and patches where chitin had been replaced with metal. "Sit down, young one. I will grant you access to the file. But first, you will listen to me explain what happened. Because that file contains only facts. It does not contain the fear." Drell Saturday, Orin moved to the window that overlooked the station. 40 years ago, I was not Guildmaster. I was simply another operative. One of the best, if I may say so without excessive pride. The Guild received a contract from a corporate executive. He wanted a human mining crew eliminated. 15 workers on a remote station called Gallows. The payment was generous. The job seemed simple. "Seemed," Drell repeated. "The Guild sent 8 of us. 8 elite operatives against 15 miners. We disabled their communications first, then their life support. We expected them to die slowly while we waited safely in our ship. When we detected no life signs after 6 hours, we entered the station to confirm the kills." Orin turned from the window. In the dim light, Drell could see that one of his compound eyes was artificial. "A replacement. They were waiting for us," Orin continued. "The humans had not died. They had built survival equipment for mining tools. They had sealed themselves in one section and created their own air supply from chemical processes. When we entered, they attacked. 8 elite assassins against 15 miners," Drell said. "Surely you had the advantage. We had training. They had desperation." Orin's voice grew quieter. "Desperation and rage. Do you know what a human looks like when it is cornered, young one? When it knows it will die unless it kills everything in its path. I have fought warriors from a dozen species. I have faced death many times. But I have never seen anything like a human who has decided to survive." He touched the artificial eye. "One of them did this to me with a welding torch. A female named Daracole. She was small, soft. She had worked in the mines for 20 years. And she killed 3 of my team with that torch in her bare hands before we could retreat." Drell felt cold despite the warm chamber. "How many of your team survived?" "1. Orin met his gaze. "Me. I was the only one who escaped the station. The humans captured our ship. They took our weapons. And then they did something that changed the Guild forever." "What?" "They hunted the client." Orin sat back, down heavily. "We had protocols. The client's identity was protected. Multiple layers of security. False names. Hidden accounts. It should have been impossible to trace. But the humans spent 6 months tracking him down. 6 months of patient, relentless investigation. They found him in his private compound on a core world. A compound with 50 guards and the best security credits could buy. And they killed every guard. They bypassed every system. They found a client in his office, and they carved a message into his desk before they executed him. Orin's voice was barely a whisper now. The message said, "We remember." Drell sat in silence for a long moment. They crossed the galaxy for revenge against a man who had only given an order. Humans do not distinguish between the hand that strikes and the mind that commands, Orin said. To them, all are guilty. All will be punished, and they will wait years, decades, however long it takes. Their patience is as endless as their rage. Why did you not warn the client? I did. He laughed at me. He said they were only humans. Orin made the clicking laugh again, but there was no humor in it. That is what everyone says before they learn. They are only humans. Soft, slow, weak. And then the humans prove them wrong, and it is too late. He transferred a file to Drell's personal device. There, you have access to the Gallows file now. Read it. Study every detail. And then, if you are still foolish enough to consider that contract, come speak to me again. Drell stood and walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold. Guildmaster, why did you survive when the others did not? Orin was quiet for a moment. Because I ran. The moment I saw what those humans truly were, I ran faster than I have ever run in my life. I abandoned my team. I abandoned my honor. I fled like a frightened child. And that cowardice is the only reason I am alive today. Drell left the chamber with the file burning in his device. 40 million credits still waited on the board. But now he understood why nobody would touch it. She was missing an arm and walked with a permanent limp, but Kira Nas still moved like a predator. Drell recognized her the moment she entered the bar on Hollow's End. Everyone did. 20 years ago, Kira had been the greatest assassin the Crimson Ledger had ever produced. Her record of kills remained unmatched. Her techniques were still taught to new recruits. She was a legend. She was also a warning. Kira sat across from Drell without asking permission. Her remaining hand wrapped around a glass of something strong. Her eyes were sharp despite her age, studying him like a target. You are the one looking at the human contract, she said. It was not a question. Word travels fast. Word always travels fast when someone is about to die. She took a long drink. I came to save you the trouble. Drell leaned back in his chair. With respect, I have heard the warnings. I have read the files. I know about Gallows Station. Then you know nothing. Kira set down her glass hard. Files are facts. Gallows is history. Neither will teach you what I can teach you. Because I am one of the only assassins who went after a human and survived. This caught his attention. The files did not mention you. I requested my record be sealed. Pride. She laughed bitterly. I had so much pride back then. Like you do now. I can see it in your 4 hands, the way you hold them. Ready for anything. Confident in your skills. I was the same way. What happened? Kira pushed up the sleeve on her remaining arm, revealing a mass of scar tissue that ran from wrist to shoulder. His name was Peter Grant, human businessman. He had cheated a noble family out of their fortune using legal tricks and false contracts. They wanted him dead. The payment was excellent. The target seemed easy. He was just a businessman, Drell said. He was just a businessman, Kira agreed. Soft, overweight, no combat training in his file. He spent his days in meetings and his nights in expensive restaurants. I watched him for a month. I planned every detail. I was perfect. What went wrong? Everything. She touched her scarred arm. My first attempt was poison. I bribed a server at his favorite restaurant. The poison was one of my specialties. It killed within minutes, untraceable after death. He drank the entire glass. And nothing. He complained about an upset stomach and ordered dessert. I learned later that humans had evolved resistance to that particular toxin. Their ancestors encountered it on their death world millions of years ago. Their bodies learned to survive it. My perfect poison was meaningless. Drell frowned. So you tried again? I tried again. Explosive device in his transport. Small, precise, would look like an engine failure. He would never see it coming. Kira shook her head slowly. Except he did see it coming. Do you know what he did before entering his vehicle that morning? He checked underneath it. Every morning. Every single morning. The humans have a word for this. Paranoia. They assume danger is everywhere, always. They check for threats constantly. It is exhausting. It is also why they are so hard to kill. He found the device. He found the device. He disabled it himself. He did not call authorities. He did not increase his security. He simply removed it and went about his day. But now he knew someone was hunting him. She finished her drink and signaled for another. My third attempt was direct. I cornered him in an alley behind his office. No weaknesses. No escape. Just me and one soft, slow, weak human. Drell looked at her missing arm, at her twisted leg. He did that to you. In less than 30 seconds. Kira's voice was flat. I had 4 arms then, like you. I had trained for 60 years. I had killed more targets than I could remember. And that businessman broke me like I was made of paper. How? Humans fight like nothing else in the galaxy. They have no natural weapons, so they use everything as a weapon. They have no armor, so they attack without defending. They have no venom, so they use pure force and weight and rage. She accepted her new drink, but did not touch it. He grabbed my arm and snapped it. When I tried to counter, he broke my leg with a strike I did not even see. When I fell, he stood over me and said, "Tell your guild that humans do not die easy. And we never forget who tried. He let you live. He let me live as a message." She finally met his eyes directly. I crawled back to this station. I spent a year recovering. I never took another contract. I retired here, broken and humiliated, because I understood something that night in that alley. What? Humans are not prey. Humans have never been prey. For millions of years on their planet, they were surrounded by creatures larger, faster, stronger, deadlier than themselves. And they did not hide. They did not run. They hunted those creatures to extinction. Every predator that ever challenged them is gone. Because humans do not just survive. They conquer. She stood from the table, leaving her full drink behind. "Go watch your target," she said. "Ambassador Webb. Watch him like I watch Peter Grant. See if you can find the predator hiding behind those soft eyes. Then decide if 40 million credits is worth your life." She limped away into the crowd. Drell sat alone, thinking about businessmen and miners and all the other soft, weak humans who had destroyed the best killers the galaxy had to offer. Then he went to book transport to Neutral Station Ardent. Ambassador David Webb laughed at a joke someone told him, and Drell felt a chill run down his spine. He had been watching the human for 6 days now. 6 days of careful observation from hidden positions throughout Neutral Station Ardent. 6 days of studying every movement, every habit, every routine. And in all that time, he had seen nothing that matched the stories. Webb was a middle-aged male by human standards. His hair was turning gray at the edges. His body was soft from years of diplomatic work. He smiled easily and often. He shook hands with aliens from every species and remembered their names. He attended meetings and dinners and conferences with the patience of someone who genuinely enjoyed talking to people. By all appearances, he was exactly what his file said. A diplomat, a bureaucrat, a talker, not a fighter. But Drell could not stop watching his eyes. Those eyes never stopped moving. Even when Webb was laughing at a joke or listening to a boring speech, his gaze swept the room constantly. He tracked every person who entered. He noted every exit. He positioned himself with walls at his back whenever possible, often with such casual smoothness that most observers would never notice. And his hand. His right hand stayed near his hip even at formal dinners. Not obviously. Not in a way that suggested nervousness. Just a slight preference in posture that kept that hand ready. Always ready. Then there were his aides. Webb traveled with 2 assistants who handled his schedule and communications. They looked like bureaucrats. They dressed like bureaucrats. But they did not move like bureaucrats. Drell had spent his career studying movement. He could tell a warrior from a civilian by the way they walked across a room. Webb's aides walked like hunters. Their eyes did the same constant sweep as their master. They positioned themselves at optimal angles for crossfire coverage. They never both looked away from a crowd at the same time. These were not assistants. These were guardians. On the 7th day, Drell found what he thought was a weakness. Every night, after his last meeting, Webb took a walk through the station gardens. The gardens were a peaceful area filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Artificial streams flowed between the greenery. The lighting was dim and gentle. It was the only time Webb was alone, that no aides. No guards. Just the ambassador walking slowly through the plants, sometimes stopping to examine a flower or watch the water flow. That it seemed out of character. A human this careful, this constantly aware, choosing to walk alone through a secluded area? It made no sense, unless it was a routine he could not break. Humans were creatures of habit. Perhaps this walk was something Webb needed. A moment of peace in a life of constant vigilance, or perhaps it was something else entirely. Drell pushed away the doubt. He had spent a week watching. He had found no other opportunity. The gardens were his best chance, that he returned to his hidden room and began planning. The gardens had multiple entry points. Security cameras covered the main paths, but left gaps in the secondary trails. Webb always walked the same route, passing a particular bench near a fountain at roughly the same time each night. If Drell positioned himself in the bushes near that fountain, he would have a clear shot point. One shot. One kill. 40 million credits. He checked his weapon. A neural disruptor that killed instantly and silently. No miss. No evidence. Webb would simply collapse, and by the time anyone found him, Drell would be on a transport leaving the system. Perfect, but on the 8th night, Drell made his move. He infiltrated the gardens 2 hours before Webb's usual walk. He found his position near the fountain and settled into the bushes. His weapon was charged and ready. His 4 hands were steadied. He waited. The garden was quiet. The artificial streams whispered. The plants swayed in the recycled air. Somewhere in the distance, someone played soft music. Webb appeared on the path. The ambassador walked slowly, just as he always did. He paused to examine a flower with blue petals that glowed in the dim light. He smiled at something only he could see. Then he continued toward the fountain, toward Drell. The assassin raised his weapon. Webb was 30 meters away. 20. 10. He would pass the fountain in seconds. Drell aimed at the center of his chest. Webb rounded the corner. Their eyes met, and Webb smiled. The lights went out. Drell reacted instantly, rolling from his position, weapons searching for targets. But the darkness was total. No emergency lighting. No backup systems. Nothing but blackness. Then the lights came back on. Drell found himself surrounded. Webb stood 3 meters in front of him, hands clasped behind his back, completely relaxed. His 2 aides were behind Drell, weapons aimed at his head. And emerging from the bushes, from behind trees, from positions Drell had never detected, were 4 more humans. 6 humans total. All armed. All watching him with eyes that held no mercy. "We knew you were watching from day one," Webb said. His voice was calm, friendly even. "We have been tracking you since you left Hollow's End. This garden walk? It was bait. You took it." Drell did not lower his weapon. Not that it mattered. If he fired at Webb, the others would kill him before the shot landed. "You could have killed me any time," Drell said. "Why wait?" "Because we do not want you," Webb replied. "We want the name of whoever paid for this contract. Give us that and you live. Refuse, and we'll find out anyway. It will just take longer and hurt more." Drell looked at the humans surrounding him, at their calm faces, at their steady weapons. He thought about Gallows Station, about Kiranos, about all the warnings he had ignored. Then he gave them the name. The blade was cold against Drell's face, that he did not flinch. After everything that had happened in the last hour, a blade seemed almost gentle. The human holding it was one of Webb's hidden guards, a female with short dark hair and eyes that showed nothing. "Hold still," she said. "This is not punishment. This is a message." She cut him. A single line from his left eyebrow down to his jaw, deep enough to scar permanently, shallow enough that he would survive. Drell did not make a sound. When she finished, Webb handed him a cloth to press against the wound. The ambassador's friendly smile was gone now. What remained was something colder, something that matched all the stories Drell had heard. "You gave us the name," Webb said. "That earns you your life. But you took a contract on a human. That earns you a reminder. The scar. The scar." Webb nodded. "When you return to your guild, everyone will see it. Everyone will know what it means. And when young assassins ask about the human contract, you will show them this mark and tell them the truth." Drell pressed the cloth to his bleeding face. What truth? That humans remember. That humans hunt back. That taking a contract on one of us means accepting that we might come for you. Not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not for years. But eventually. Because we never forget and we never stop. One of the guards handed Drell his weapon, drained of charge. Another returned his personal effects. They were letting him go, exactly as promised. The client, Drell said. What will happen to him? Webb's expression did not change. That is not your concern anymore. You gave us his name. What happens next is between him and us. He is a powerful man. Hegemony official. Protected. They're always protected. Webb smiled, and it was not a pleasant sight. The executive who ordered the gallows massacre was protected too. 50 guards. Best security money could buy. We still found him. We still delivered justice. Protection means nothing when humans decide someone needs to die. A guard escorted Drell to the garden exit. Before he left, he turned back one last time. Ambassador, one question. Webb waited. You knew I was watching for a week. You could have captured me immediately. Why let me plan? Why let me get so close before springing the trap? Webb considered the question. Because we wanted you to believe you had a chance. We wanted you to commit. A frightened assassin who runs at the first sign of danger tells others that humans are alert. A confident assassin who is caught in the act tells others that humans are patient. That we can see threats long before they mature. That we allow prey to feel safe before we close the cage. He stepped closer to Drell. Close enough that the Makari could smell something on him. Not perfume. Not chemicals. Something older. Something that smelled like generations of survival. Your guild will hear about this. Not from us. From you. You will tell them how you watched for a week and saw nothing. How you planned the perfect assassination. How you had your weapon raised and your target in sight. And then you will tell them how 6 humans appeared from nowhere and ended your career in seconds. Webb stepped back. That story will do more to protect human lives than any security system ever could. Fear is the best defense. And you, Drell Sovon, are going to spread that fear for us. Drell left neutral station Ardent on the next available transport. His face throbbed with every heartbeat. The wound would need treatment, but he did not seek a medical bay. He sat alone in his cabin and stared at his reflection. The cut was precise, professional. It would heal into a clean scar that would be visible for the rest of his life. A message. A warning. A mark of failure that he could never hide. He thought about the client. Lord Voss, a hegemony trade minister who had ordered Webb's death over some diplomatic slight. Voss was wealthy, powerful, connected. He had security teams and political allies and emergency protocols for every possible threat. None of it would save him. Drell had seen what humans could do to protected targets. He had read the files. He had heard the stories from Orin and Kira. He knew that somewhere, right now, humans were beginning the hunt. They would trace Voss's location. They would study his security. They would wait for the perfect moment. And then Lord Voss would disappear. Maybe they would leave a body. Maybe they would leave a message. Or maybe Voss would simply vanish. And the only evidence would be the whispered rumors that followed. Never order a hit on a human. Never cross them. Never give them a reason to remember your name. Drell closed his eyes. 40 million credits. That was what this had cost him. Not money gained, but money lost. Plus his reputation. Plus his pride. Plus any hope of being seen as anything other than a cautionary tale. But he was alive. He thought about the assassins in those files. The ones who had not been given a choice. The ones who had died in alleys and ships and stations across the galaxy. The ones who had underestimated soft, slow, weak humans. Drell was alive because he had given up the name. Because he had been useful. Because Webb had seen more value in sending him home as a message than in killing him as a statement that IT was a small mercy from species that did not have to show any mercy at all. The transport jumped to faster-than-light speed. The Hollows End waited at the other end. And so did his new future as a living warning. 1 month later, Lord Voss vanished from his private estate. His security team was found unconscious. His surveillance systems showed nothing but static. The only evidence left behind was a message carved into his desk. We remember. Drell heard the news while standing in the Crimson Ledger's main hall. Around him, dozens of assassins stopped their conversations and looked at each other. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The humans had done exactly what everyone knew they would do. Guildmaster Orin summoned a general assembly that evening. Every operative on Hollow's End gathered in the great chamber. Drell stood near the back, his scarred face visible to everyone who glanced his way. He had become famous in the worst possible way. The assassin who took the human contract and came back marked. Orin stood on the raised platform at the center of the chamber. His ancient body seemed tired. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of centuries. You have all heard about Lord Voss. You have all seen what the humans did. And you have all seen our brother Drell, who carries their message on his face. Hundreds of eyes turned toward Drell. He did not look away. For decades, this guild has operated under an unofficial policy regarding human targets. We discouraged such contracts. We warned those who considered them. But we never made it law. We left the choice to individual operatives. Orin paused. That changes today. He gestured, and a new document appeared on every screen in the chamber. From this day forward, the Crimson Ledger will accept no contracts on human targets. This is not a guideline. This is not a suggestion. This is absolute law. Any member who violates this policy will be expelled from the guild immediately. Their name and location will be forwarded to human authorities. They will face justice from both us and them. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some operatives shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded with obvious relief. I know some of you think this is cowardice, Orin continued. You think we are the greatest assassins in known space. You think humans are soft and slow and weak. You think your skills are superior. His compound eyes swept across the room. You are wrong. Humans have proven, again and again, that they are not prey. They fight back. They hunt back. They remember, and they never stop. Every assassin who has targeted a human in the past century has either died or wished they had. This is not a species we can challenge. This is a species we must avoid. The chamber was silent. The Crimson Ledger has survived for 800 years because we know which battles to fight. Humans are not a battle. Humans are a war we cannot win, and so we will not fight it. We will accept contracts on any other species in the galaxy. But humans are off the list. Forever. Orin dismissed the assembly. Assassins filed out in small groups, talking quietly among themselves. Most seemed relieved. A few looked frustrated, but nobody argued. The policy was clear. Later that night, a young operative approached Drell in the corridor. A Sefki, like Moro, with fresh scales and eager eyes. He had been in the guild for less than a year. You are the one who took the human contract, the young one said. Is it true what they say? That you had the target in your sights and still failed? Drell touched his scar. It is true, but you're skilled. I have seen your record. 200 kills. How could one human defeat you? It was not one human. Drell met the young assassin's eyes. It was 6, and they knew I was coming before I even arrived at the station. They watched me watching them. They let me plan. They let me believe I had a chance. And then they appeared from shadows I did not know existed and ended my career in seconds. The young operative's scales shifted to a paler color. Fear. If you ever think about taking a human contract, Drell said, remember what I am telling you now. Read the history. Ask anyone who has tried. And look at this scar. This is what mercy looks like from a human. I got to live because I was useful. The others were not useful. The others are dead. He started to walk away, then stopped. There's a phrase the humans use. A warning they give to each other about dangerous places and dangerous people. They say, here there be monsters. Drell touched his scar again. To the rest of the galaxy, humans are the monsters. And the smart ones among us have learned not to hunt monsters. The young operative watched him go. Far across the galaxy, on a blue-green world called Earth, Ambassador David Webb received a notification on his personal device. He was sitting in his garden, real plants this time, under a yellow sun. His aide stood nearby. The Crimson Ledger has updated their official policy, Webb said, reading the message. No contracts on human targets. Belmanomban. Any violators will be expelled and reported to us. His aide nodded. That makes 12 assassin guilds now with similar policies. 12. Webb smiled and set down his device. Not bad for a soft, slow, weak species. He poured himself a drink and watched the sunset. His aide asked, "Think they will stay scared?" Webb considered the question. The same question had been asked after every incident, every reminder, every demonstration of what happened when someone tried to hurt a human. Fear fades, he said finally. Memories grow old. Every few decades, someone will test the policy. Someone young and arrogant who thinks they are different, who thinks the stories are exaggerated. He raised his glass toward the fading sun. And when they do, we will remind them why the policy exists. Again and again, for as long as it takes. Because that is what humans do. We remember, we adapt, and we make sure our enemies never forget the cost of hunting us. The sun set on Earth. Somewhere in the galaxy, the next young fool was already thinking about taking a human contract. And somewhere else, humans were already watching, waiting, ready.